Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einer weiteren Ausgabe von Queer Diversity in Salzburg. Endlich wieder eine neue Folge, in der wir aktuelle Geschehnisse, aber auch wichtige Ereignisse aus dem letzten Jahr aufgreifen möchten. Ich bin Tobias Posowitz.
Und ich bin Isabella Zajons. Dieses Mal möchten wir uns das T der LGBTQIA+ Community anlässlich des Trans Visibility Days am 31. März in den Fokus stellen. Es warten spannende Reportagen und ein interessantes Interview auf euch. Viel Spaß!
Bevor wir darauf eingehen, möchten wir euch ein wichtiges Projekt aus dem letzten Jahr vorstellen. Kunst, trotzt, Gewalt. Ein Projekt, in dem Künstlerinnen und Künstler, kreative Autorinnen und Autoren, sei es als Betroffene oder Verbündete, interdisziplinär und spartenübergreifend aufgerufen worden sind, sich mit dem Thema Gewalt gegen Frauen, Mädchen, Lesben, Intermenschen, nicht-binäre Menschen, Transgender und Agender auseinanderzusetzen.
Organisiert wurde es durch eine Kooperation des Frauennotrufs Salzburg mit dem Gender-Zentrum für Gender Studies und Frauenförderung und dem Fotohof Salzburg. Das Projekt fand Ende November in Salzburg statt. FS1 berichtete bereits darüber. Das Thema ist auch für unsere Sendung von großer Relevanz und deshalb möchten wir euch einen Rückblick darüber nicht vorenthalten.
Ja, hallo und herzlich willkommen zu Kunst, trotzt, Gewalt, einem Kunstprojekt, das in Kooperation von Frauennotruf Salzburg, dem Gender-Zentrum für Gender Studies und Frauenförderung und dem Fotohof Salzburg diesen Herbst realisiert wurde. Den Call für dieses Projekt haben wir im Herbst gestartet. Das war ein offener Aufruf sozusagen, in dem wir Frauen, Lesben, Inter, Non-Binary, Trans und Agender-Personen aufgerufen haben, künstlerische Arbeiten einzureichen zum Thema Gewalt gegen Flinters.
Und wir haben einfach überlegt, welche Ausdrucksmittel zu Gewalt gibt es, welche Verarbeitungsmöglichkeiten gibt es, wie kann man von verschiedenen Seiten einfach Gewalt und Erfahrungen beleuchten und haben uns dann entschieden, einen möglichst breiten Call zu verfassen, der prinzipiell alle einlädt, sich zu beteiligen, jetzt egal, ob man Professionistin in dem Bereich ist oder allein. Und Kunst ist einfach ein wichtiges Ausdrucksmittel. Das heißt, es kann Dinge aufzeigen, kritisieren, reflektieren, aber es ist gleichzeitig auch die Möglichkeit von Verarbeitung von Erfahrungen. Und ich glaube, mit Kunst kann man da einfach ein breites Spektrum abdecken. Und das ist auch gut angenommen worden. Das hat viele Einreichungen gegeben.
Unser Motiv war ja eigentlich auch so, Unsichtbares sichtbar zu machen, weil Gewalt ist zwar, also konkret Gewalt gegen Frauen ist heuer ein starkes Thema geworden mit auch einer großen Zahl an Femiziden, die auch in Österreich stattgefunden haben, oder? Darüber hinaus spricht man aber sehr wenig über Gewalt und mein ganz persönlicher Eindruck ist halt auch, dass man über jetzt Ausgrenzung, Verletzung, diskriminierende Formen gegenüber beispielsweise Schwulen, Lesben, Trans, Interpersonen, Non-Binary Personen einfach nur viel zu wenig spricht. Also ich kenne das persönlich jetzt aus feministischen Kontexten, aus meinem sozialen Umfeld, ich kenne das vom Gender, von Freundinnen und Freunden, aber jetzt so im Gros der Masse, wenn ich sozusagen meine eigene Bubble verlasse, dann bin ich da immer wieder sehr von den Socken, wie wenig darüber geredet wird und wie unsichtbar das eigentlich auch immer noch ist.
Ich denke, dass gerade bei sexualisierter Gewalt ein großes Thema Schweigen, Schuld und Scham ist, das da mitspielt, sowohl wenn man selber betroffen ist, als auch wenn man sich wen anvertraut. Ja, die Hürde ist extrem groß, da das Schweigen zu brechen. Das heißt, das ist ein großes Anliegen, die Barrieren so weit abzubauen, um mehr Sichtbarkeit zu schaffen, um mehr Möglichkeiten der Unterstützung, der Solidarität zu schaffen und gleichzeitig aber auch Angebote wie unseres für Unterstützung, wenn man solche Erfahrungen gemacht hat, einfach aufzustellen. Der Frauennotruf ist in die 80er Jahre entstanden, auch aus der Frauenbewegung, und wie so vieles, was institutionalisiert wird, kommt sehr oft aus Bewegungen und aus den Forderungen heraus. Das heißt, primär richtet sich das Angebot an Frauen. Gleichzeitig sind es aber aktuelle Diskussionen, die sowohl die Frauennotrufe bzw. Frauenberatungsstellen betreffen, wo man einfach überlegen muss, wo sind die Zuständigkeiten, inwieweit öffnet man das Angebot für verschiedene Geschlechtsidentitäten. Das ist eine Frage von Frauen-Mädchen-Beratungszentren allgemein, das man einfach gerade diskutieren muss. Bei uns im Frauennotruf ist es so, dass wir generell unser Beratungsangebot offen halten und sie generell alle an uns wenden können, die irgendwelche Fragen zu sexualisierter Gewalt haben in der Beratung. Für Betroffene ist es ebenfalls offen. Natürlich sind bei uns auch gerade aus der queeren Community natürlich auch Lesben, bi- oder pansexuelle Menschen. Aber man merkt schon auch, dass das ein Thema ist, das in Zukunft mehr diskutiert werden muss, beziehungsweise auch, wo man sich überlegen muss, wie man das Angebot auch öffentlich macht, dass man sich an uns wenden kann und das nicht nur Frauen betrifft.
Dass das halt irgendwann einmal hoffentlich zu einer Normalität wird, dass man anerkennt, dass geschlechtliche Vielfalt in der Gesellschaft halt jetzt irgendwie nicht so das super exotische oder Ausnahmezustand ist, sondern eigentlich was ist, was immer schon gegeben war und letztlich eine politische Entscheidung war, dass man das halt so eng führt und in einen binären Kontext einsperrt.
Nun kommen wir zum Schwerpunkt der heutigen Sendung. Unsere Kollegin Katrin hat sich mit Cat getroffen. Cat ist Queer-Referentin für Genderfragen und LGBTQIA+ an der ÖH Salzburg. Zusammen haben sie sich über Transgender unterhalten, sowie über bedeutende Ereignisse wie den Trans Day of Remembrance im November, sowie auch über den Trans Visibility Day jetzt im März.
Welcome to this interview. Thank you so much for being here. And first of all, would you quickly like to introduce yourself?
Yes. First of all, I also want to say thank you for inviting me. It was a lovely surprise. And thank you for agreeing to do this interview in English.
Of course.
My name is Cat Jugravu. I'm turning 31 next week on the 8th of March. Yes, I am. I prefer the pronouns they, them. I'm currently finishing my master degree at Mozarteum for applied theater, artistic practice and society, and I am currently the Referentin for the Referat Genderfragen und LGBTQIA+ at the ÖH Salzburg.
Okay, great.
Yes.
And what does the Referat, the queer Referat at Uni Salzburg do, and why do you think it's so important to have like own Referat?
Thank you for the question. I like that we're jumping straight into the,
into
the business here. Right, so the Referat, it's actually a very new Referat. I would say it's in its second year right now, and the Referat is supposed to represent the LGBTQIA+ students of the University of Salzburg, but I would say also of Mozarteum, since I'm a student there, I'm trying to kind of unite these two worlds. So it's about representation. It is about somewhat forwarding a queer agenda in terms of discussions with tutors on different problems that the students are finding in the day-to-day student life. And also we have a bit of an educational role, and this is actually the main theme, I would say, of this year's presidency. Because together with my team, we've decided to come up with a topic which is queer zusammen. And we actually want to transgress a bit from LGB as a sexual practice or a sexual diversity, but look mostly towards like the political dimension, right? And here comes also trans rights, queer rights, intersex rights, which are very untalked about, agender, and whatever there is out there on the spectrum. Yeah, so we have this topic, and we run different initiatives, different projects, hoping to give an impulse to our students to also become active, to be the makers of their community, and not just passive receivers.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's like an exchange every 2 weeks, right?
Yes. It's a new project. I mean, for us, it has taken us a while, but I want to say that the Stammtisch, where we called it a queer Tisch, of course.
Yeah, of course.
It also took place last year, if I remember. That's how I got to know the Referat für Genderfragen. Yeah. I attended one of the meetings, but I would say we reshaped it a bit. We we came up with topics that are equally political and cultural. We are inviting different experts, or we have inputs like theoretical inputs. I think last week you kind of attended the session.
I was a bit late, yeah.
We're not going to say how.
Yeah, no, it's public. I was late, I'm sorry.
Well, then I'm going to go and say you were 2 hours late.
No, don't say it.
But, hey, so it was actually beautiful how you appeared and you were ready, you know, because our topic was queer history. We were looking on the Stonewall riots and trans activism. And then you just popped up immediately as we were having the feedback session with the team.
Yeah.
Yes, every 2 weeks. The next one is next Thursday. I think that's 10th of March. And besides that, we also organize different events or different collaborations. We also have a very cool team, and we shared office with the Referat von feministische Politik.
Okay.
So we kind of decided to unite our forces this semester because, and this is a personal opinion, you can't really be queer, call yourself queer and not be a feminist. The other way around, we've seen. It's possible.
Yeah, of course.
You know, so, yeah.
Right. So you've kind of already mentioned like there's like also a political thing with being LGBTQ+. I want to ask you, like, in your opinion, what are some issues within the queer community? And I'm using queer as an umbrella term here. And maybe like an issue that people aren't even aware of.
Right. I mean, I'm not gonna point out fingers here, you know, at like individual communities, because we must agree that it's been hard for each individual community. For the lesbian community, we know very well the struggles for the gay community, for the intersex community. So I'm not gonna point like fingers, but rather say that there are some structural problems here, and I'm going to, of course, point fingers at our politicians and the government, because it is absolutely true. I mean, there are very, very good things happening from, you know, a few years back, like marriage equality. Whether this is like something that we all want and we all think it should be, it's a different topic, but still. It's there from the idea of like Geschlechtsselbstbestimmung, which is hopefully it's about to come, where one can determine their own gender identity and not have to go through psychological counseling. To many others. So one is structural. Then we would also have like small academic drawbacks, you know, when it comes with representation on queer topics. We have, like at ÖH Salzburg, actually quite a plethora of courses and classes, seminars that one can take related to gender studies, which is absolutely fantastic. But sometimes I question the sensibility of the professor towards the topics, and of course this you develop through interaction with students that are willing to talk about themselves, and this comes very hard. Also in a university context, you know, this thing with like diversity and inclusion has been around for a few years. But then the question is, do you really want to be like spotlighted, you know, to be the diversity case in the seminar, you know? So I would say communication in between queer communities and non-queer communities is still an issue. Also add the whole discussion around gender, which tends to make people uneasy. Well, because first of all, grammar makes people uneasy. Yes. I remember when I was studying grammar in high school. And secondly, it's just a very strange thing for people to to have to change the way they speak, to actually be aware the way they speak the language. And this works really well, because I was thinking the other day, you know, myself as a migrant, for example, it's like I always have to pay attention to the language, right? So perhaps it comes easier for a migrant in a foreign country, because they already have to be aware. So it's easier to change the syntax of a phrase or anything. But for people that are like, had it easy on a linguistical level, it's like, why should I do this? Why should I? And I think this is definitely not acknowledging someone's like gender identity or making such mistakes can also create discomfort inside of communities and even conflicts and hatred.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense, because like if you've always talked this language, you're not like, even I grew up speaking German, and if you ask me something about grammar, I probably don't know it. Whereas like we learned, you also learned English in school, you're more aware of that. So yeah, that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and connecting to like generally like the topic of gender, because in this like episode we want to focus more on the trans community. I've got the feeling that often there's a prejudice towards the trans community, sometimes even within the queer community, but like, as you said, we're not going to point fingers here, but like often there are kind of stereotypes. And what's something you think that people should know? Maybe something that's like almost easy that could reduce those stereotypes, if that's even possible. At least to people who are like open to it, because people who are not open-minded, I guess that's very hard.
Right. Well, I think people should be made aware, in case they weren't, that being transgender is not an easy thing. It does not come as a choice. You wake up one day and you think, oh, I would really look great with like heels and lipstick and makeup. It is definitely not about that. So transgender people have to make an entire journey of coming to themselves and admitting their reality, their inner reality. And it's always a struggle, because there's a lot of pressure from the outside pushing you into a direction that you don't feel you want to go. So I think people should know about the struggle and should know that sensitivity is recommended, and also kindness and understanding that there is no such thing as a transgender conversion agenda. Transgender people don't want to convert you to become transgender. It's not that easy, you know. And really, I think we all just want to get it done with and reach our truest self, and just you know, contribute to society and to our environments and to our community. But it's definitely a struggle, and also people should understand and know that you know, transgenderism is also a spectrum, right? So maybe you've already talked before in this show about gender binaries, which is like male and female. And whatever steps outside of this binary is non-binary or transgender. So the difference here that you would have transgender women that eventually want to be women. Therefore, the transgender term can very easily go out, because or transgender men, they attain towards the binary. System. But then there are others, such as myself, who feel very comfortable with really having no gender, really. I mean, non-binary, it's already a gender in itself. And for me, the journey is very exciting. First of all, the journey to look at myself every day and realize how special I am, and how special we all are. It's really a forefront of a gender identity. It's not a new gender identity. It would be wrong of me to say it's a new gender identity, because as we know, in a non-Western context, we are talking about third genders. We're talking about like transgender for ages, you know. But maybe in a European space, a new create a new human, or be a part of of creating a new human, you know. So yes, it is a personal journey. It also has some, of course, some echoes back in childhood, and it's like I feel like many others that identify as non-binary that I found myself in somewhere in an intersection between male and female. Yes.
And since we're already talking about it, because I wasn't quite sure whether I'd ask you this question, because I don't know if there's an answer really. Yeah,
let's see. We find it together.
Okay.
Yes.
When it comes to people who are non-binary, especially in the media, there's very little representation, especially if we compare it to other parts of the queer community, like gay men, for example. Why do you think is that?
Well, because we've been talking about gay men for decades and decades, and people have gotten used to the idea that there are gay men out there, and it does not make people uncomfortable anymore. Well, in some parts of the world, in some parts of Europe, right?
Yeah, of course.
But when we're talking about transgender people, maybe we are starting to hear a bit more, and I think the United States is doing a pretty good job in representing on one side, and we're talking the film industry, the music industry. On the other side, it's doing a pretty bad job on protection of non-privileged transgender women.
Yeah.
And here we are talking about transgender women of color, for example, that are being murdered very predominantly in the United States and South America. It's like the rates are very, very high. Now with non-binary, we also notice that I guess Hollywood takes the lead. Now you see all this film stars coming out as non-binary, and I think we are not comfortable yet as a society to accept that no gender is an option. And it's basically, people will see it in TV, and there will be, it might just like blow someone's mind.
Yeah.
Be like, you mean I could have had all this, I could have had this option all this time, you know? I would say perhaps we don't want to create such a chaos, and I talk here as a we, as a society. Myself, I don't mind a bit of chaos. Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. And also, since people are so used to that binary, it's sometimes hard to like think out of that.
Old habits die hard. No.
Very true. Let's talk about the Trans Day of Remembrance, because there was like a couple of weeks now, almost a couple months ago.
It was a couple of months ago.
Yeah. Would you like to give like a short description of it, and also why it's so important to have this special day? Yes.
So the Transgender Day of Remembrance was, I mean, is a worldwide event, but we've also taken the chance to pay our respect to the trans victims of hatred. it took place on the 20th of November, and it was organized by the ÖH, by the Referat Genderfragen, in collaboration with the Mozarteum University, and I'm super thankful for that. And it was part of a bigger program. We've decided to dedicate November to transgender rights and intersex rights, to dedicate the month of November to having a critical look at gender. And first we had a roundtable discussion, virtual discussion, that was on the 9th of November, on intersex rights, and we invited intersex activists from Wien, Österreich zum Beispiel, and that's like Verein Intersex Menschen Österreich und Trans Queer Berlin. We had 2 activists and experts on the topic. We also collaborated with Up, with Cornelia Brunauer. She was moderating, and we had a very nice chat. And we also had a film screening, a short film screening online. Unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties, and that is internet. And you know, these are the times we're so reliant on the internet. And when it fucks up, it's not very nice.
Yeah.
But it was an okay edition, and I do hope that whoever follows me on the Referat next year would also consider doing this event. And we also managed to publish in the ÖH Uni Press an article from a trans non-binary recent master graduate on Namensänderung, so name change, and this journey that one has to do from an institution to an institution, and how much would it cost?
Yeah, right.
It's a struggle. You should, if you can get your hands on an old copy. No, it's actually the actual copy of the Uni Press. It's called Up, I think. You will see that the article is right in the middle of the spread, and we also collaborated with Uni Press, and we did a poster. Remember, like back in, I think early 2000, we were buying these magazines, and we could always take the posters.
Right, yeah.
So we wanted to do that, and there is a very beautiful drawing of Marsha P. Johnson, which is a very important transgender activist. And we also got the back cover. So that was another event in this month, another project, and the third was the concert for the Transgender Day of Remembrance. And it just came as an idea, you know. There was already this alarming state because we were just going to enter into a new lockdown.
Yeah.
And just one day after the concert.
Oh, wow.
One day after. So it was like, I tell you, there was so much stress, and I was getting messages from everywhere, including from the ÖH, and saying like, are you sure you want to go with the event? Maybe we should postpone it. Maybe we should do it next year. I tend to be very stubborn, but not at the safety of other people. Of course, we made a very sturdy and reliable COVID concept. We also just reduced even, I think, less than half. We had very few people, but it was still nice, and people were very spread. Were you filming
Yes.
No?
I asked you about it because the next thing the viewers are going to see is like a couple of short videos from the concert. So that's why I want you to talk about it.
Okay.
Yes.
That is really exciting, and thank you so much. Thanks to you, and thanks to the whole redaction for your support. It looks absolutely gorgeous, and I was so happy to find it the other month when I was like, hey, what about that interview, that concert? So we had Jonin Herzig performing a spoken word piece. Jonin Herzig is Mozarteum acting student. They are in the third year. We had Starbuck. Starbuck is an amazing singer and also a very new drag performer. And we also had Trace Lobison, and she is she's a fantastic singer. She's just about to launch her first album. I'm just gonna plug that in. But of course, we live in very weird times, and she's postponing it until the world gets better. So it was these three artists, and behind stage was myself with Maximilian Helmers. Max is the veteran Sachbearbeiter at the Referat Genderfragen. Then we had Fi Lachmann and Jonas Bormann. They're also Sachbearbeiters in the team. And Mozarteum, you know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Amazing. And now it's almost like the end of the interview. Is there anything you want to say to the world, or at least the people watching?
I was talking too much anyway, so you might just be a bit sick of me.
No, you weren't.
I mean, I don't know. To just make an address to the people, it feels like I'm the Queen of England now, you know. As I said, we live in terrible times, and I know it's not easy for anybody. First and foremost, we are talking of people that are in areas of conflict, and of course, we're talking these days very much about Ukraine and the lives that are being lost in Ukraine. But also we need to be aware that there are currently 6 wars happening in this world. So yes, this is very close to us, and we feel confused, we feel anxious, we feel frozen, and somehow it just feels like it doesn't matter, all this like divisions between us as people. But I would like to say that it still matters, because on an intersectional level there are people that they are still suffering more, and you would say you can't quantify suffering, but in a way you can, because if we are talking about transgender people that have to go to war because the state has not recognized their gender identity, queer people of any sort that have absolutely no military preparation, and they will definitely face all sorts of phobias in that context. We're talking about Roma people that are extremely marginalized at this point and not allowed to even enter countries, to flee a country at war because of the color of their skin. Yeah, the world is crazy right now. The world hurts. But just don't freeze. Just try to help as much as you can. If you do have some sort of privilege, try to extend it to those in need. And this is a good exercise because you might do it now because the situation is very dire, but you might get used to it, and when things will get better, you will continue to be a kind person and help others in need. There's always going to be others in need.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for your words, and thank you in general for the interview.
I was channeling the Queen of England. Problematic, I know, but still everybody should channel a queen from time to time. Thank you for the invitation. It was very, very nice. Yes.
Well, I'm glad to hear.
And I hope we see us again.
Of course.
Vielen Dank nochmal für das interessante Interview und den Besuch bei uns im Studio. In Vorbereitung auf den erwähnten Trans Visibility Day im März möchten wir euch nun eine Zusammenfassung des bereits stattgefundenen Trans Day of Remembrance zeigen.
Today there are many languages which I would like to speak. I want to speak the language of love and gratitude for you, which despite the hard times filled with panic, have chosen to be here. I want to speak the language of sadness for the occasion which brings us together, the Transgender Day of Remembrance. I want to speak the language of anger and pain because violence exists. Violence exists, violence affects and takes lives, but mostly I want to speak the language of love and remembrance. They can take our lives, but will never take away our spirit, our light and our love. To all our brothers and sisters which have left us this year, may you rest in peace. May you rest in power.
I'll never know how you found me, but don't go. I sit out alone, going somewhere new, and it feels like home, and it feels like you. It was only snow, now it's only you. How I
Du wirst dich in Luft auflösen, unsichtbar sein und auch ein bisschen tot. Blicke anderer entwickeln sich wider Willen, werden aufdringlich und du bist oh wie begehrenswert. Gegen Willen, gegen deinen Willen. Es schmerzt. Unsere Körper schmerzen. Weder noch wider dem Willen schmerzen unsere Körper, weder Willen wider schmerzen wollen. Wollen tot und lebendig. Mit Haut und Haaren. Mit Willen und Körper. Und weder noch. Paar Jahre psychiatrische Gutachten und Krankenkassenkriege später, schwere Augenlider, steril weiße Umgebung, erschöpfter Körper, drückender Verband um die Brust, Schmerzen, aber Schmerzen des Willens, Tage später Abtasten des modifizierten Körpers, Fingerkuppen fahren über blau-grün gefärbte Haut, Schnitte zusammengehalten von blutdurchtränktem Faden. Noch nie hast du deinen Körper so entstellt gesehen und noch nie so schön gefunden. Glück. Glück dank Willen. Zum Körper meines Willens. Zu meinem Körper.
started out as a joke. We were nothing holding hands. I held yours, you held mine. Our hands weren't really hands to begin with. We started out as a joke. We were the only gods laughing. Bodies gouged out. We are the only girls laughing. We are the only gods laughing. We are the only girls laughing.
Das war die dritte Ausgabe von Queer Beats Diversity in Salzburg mit dem Themenschwerpunkt Trans Visibility Day.
Vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen und bis zum nächsten Mal.